I wanted to turn up the temperature a little. Okay, so So I would say, I think a lot of people would say, and I would concur with this as well, that civil society in Singapore has largely been co-opted. Yoyan is not here, right? So aware, maybe you can say aware has been co-opted. Pink Dot to some extent has been co-opted. And some activists, right, they enjoy the patronage of the state. Right? They enjoy getting invited to these events and so on. You know? And there is something about that does something to you, the being in the circles, the halls of power and influence. Even if you may not have actual power, right? But being around that, it does something to you spiritually, emotionally, I think. Right? So, would you guys agree with that? That civil society in Singapore has largely been co-opted. Of course, there are the Joe medias which has not been and will not be co-opted. There's the Alfians and there's the Kirstens, but those are few and far between. The fact that I can rattle them off, and it's not even a long list, maybe, is that true? Civil society has been co-opted to the point that it is toothless?
Well, I mean, it depends. The names you mentioned, Afian, Kirsten, and so on, these are individuals. These are individuals. And as individuals, the responsibilities are a little different from if you run an organization, right? Because when you run an organization, you have to be aware that there are 35 mouths to feed, or there are other people to take care of, right? And I believe in any country, things are not about always getting your own way. It cannot be that way, because then you'll be at one extreme. Things are about, to some extent, about compromise, right? Some things you can come together and discuss and compromise. Some things you can't. So it's up to that organization to depend on. I'll give you an example. Ethos Books. When we first started out, we did not take state funding for some of our books, right? Then along the way, somebody came and convinced me that we should take state funding to promote books. And then you look at it and you say, yeah, why not? But you must remember, you do that, I take state funding, Ethos takes state funding only for books, or makes an application for state funding, only for books which we know fall outside the narrative. Fall within the narrative. Or at least, if not within the narrative, sometimes you can be outside the narrative, but as long as it's not too sensitive, like ROMs, yeah. But, yeah. But anyway, you as long as you do that, yeah, that is a compromise, but it is not co-option. Because you must still remember that at the end, you still have to pursue the end objective, which is about truth, integrity in certain things, right? But you recognize that you may have to give way in other areas. It's not like part of war, isn't it? I don't know. I used to do it myself. I used to take part in the tug of war, but I wasn't the guy pulling. I was the guy who was instructing people how to pull. So, and you remember, there are times when you must hold rather than pull. There are times you must hold rather than pull. Only then can you win. It's not always the strongest guy wins. There's strategy involved, right? Sometimes you must give you a little bit and hold, and then you pull, right? So, and this is the same in society, I feel, yeah.
Okay. So compromise is not co-optation. Right?
Yes, and I mean, actually, just to echo that, beyond just strategy, there's or to borrow an Ethos title, it's the art of advocacy, which is really quite important in the way we do things here. I mean, for us, especially a projector, it's about being here for the long term and that whole sustainability. You can either go hard, go fast, and you get shut down and you lose that platform, or you can tread that fine balance and try and work things, but become a trusted entity, which then, there's this whole politics of engagement that you can have with government entities. So maybe full disclosure, I'm also part of Pink Dot, one of the organizing committee members. And from that activism point of view, we do understand, like, in the spectrum of activism, there's a whole range of ways you can do things. For us, from the start, it has always been about trying to engage the authorities, because we know the context in Singapore is that change doesn't come from, certain ways. There are people who push those boundaries, and we actually do support them in different ways. And but for us, it's a lot of also backdoor diplomacy and engagement and all that in order to get, certain policy changes happening. The same way with Projector, I'm not sure if many of you know, but till now, Chinese dialect films are banned from theatrical releases in Singapore because we had a Mandarin policy in the past. And it's a legacy, whereas on streaming platforms like Netflix and all, there are no restrictions on this. So theaters are actually penalized. Like all the Hong Kong films that you get to see for theatrical release tend to be Mandarin dubbed. And we've been trying to push that and engaging, but nobody wants to slaughter that. But for us, it's also, you pick your battles. You continue pushing, you try and they have this rule where if it's a festival, then you can do a Chinese dialect film. So what we do is then we find festivals like the Wong Kar Wai Festival or some other festival, and we try and program these films under them. So we work within this, but also make it very challenging for them to defend that policy, which may be outdated. And hopefully by pushing these boundaries, then, we do it. So I wouldn't say we're co-opted. I think we are constantly engaging the governments that be and pushing those OB markers or boundaries or whatever as we go along.
I think the two of you have really identified a useful way of thinking about activism as well, right? It doesn't have to be like outright challenging the government all the time. There's a time for that, but that doesn't have to be all the time, right? Yeah.